The Texas Supreme Court will not intervene in the lawsuit over who should serve as Lubbock County's Precinct 2 Commissioner. This is an update in our continuing coverage of that dispute that started at the end of last year. The Supreme Court of Texas denied Mark Muir's request for an emergency action in his bid to get the court to remove Jason Corley from the seat. Lubbock County Judge Curtis Parrish first removed Corley from office in December, claiming Corley automatically resigned his seat when he announced he was looking at running for Congress. Judge Parrish appointed Muir to replace him, but Corley sued to stop it, claiming he did not activate an automatic resignation. The state of Texas is now working to defend Corley's claim to the seat in the 7th Court of Appeals in Amarillo. The lawsuit is set to proceed later this month.